Oof, not a good day for the defense. I mean, there weren't any terrible fatal blows or anything like that, but I mean, nothing. They didn't do anything to help themselves today. None of this really needed to happen. None of it really should have happened. Uh, I'll, I'll grant them that Kyle's testimony yesterday, it's debatable whether it helped or hurt. But the fact that that's debatable shows that at least it wasn't catastrophic. I don't think that it did. If it hurt his case, it didn't hurt him much. I mean, Kyle himself performed exquisitely. He did a very good job, despite the fact that his attorneys refused to object for some reason when he was being badgered by Binger, and who kept asking him the same questions 5 times, looking for a different answer. But surprisingly, today, they continued with more witnesses. And I've been watching this all day again, and there hasn't really been anything happening for the last couple of hours, so I'm going to go ahead and give my thoughts for today. And I think there were only actually 2 witnesses called today in total, and if there was more than that, that just shows how uninteresting they were. You know, I've been watching this all day. You think of me, put me in the position of a juror. If I don't remember that there was, more than 2 people, then they probably don't either. But I'm pretty sure there was only these 2 guys. You had Dr. I want to say Conrad Black, but that might be a different person, Conrad Black. I think that's a media mogul or something. But the guy's name was Dr. Black. He was a video analyst, I guess you could say. And he was a good witness, or I shouldn't say good witness. He was a good expert. Clearly, has been on stand many times, knew what he was doing. But Richards, the lead defender, the lead defense attorney, had no idea how to use this guy. I had no idea where he was going with any of what he was asking him. He just kept showing these, bits of these clips, and there was no narrative. And really, if you're sitting there as a jury and you're watching Richards go through, with this guy, there really was nothing to get out of it. I mean, he played, slow motion images of Kyle shooting people. But, I mean, we've seen the same footage over and over again. There really was... I mean, they did technically add something, but they didn't emphasize it, and they didn't make it clear. If I were sitting on the jury and not listening to legal commentary, I don't think I would have gotten anything new out of this guy's testimony. Over on Nick Rekida's channel, they had a lot of lawyers, and they highlighted that it seemed like what Richards was trying to get out of this was that the events happened over happened over a matter of seconds when it came to each of the 2 separate shootings, and the whole event of Kyle shooting people lasted for like 2 minutes, and that the shots that he fired at Rosenbaum, for example, I think occurred over 3/4 of a second. But Richards did not emphasize that at all, and so this really was a waste of a witness. He was very boring, and Binger did not really know what to do with this guy either. He even brought him back to ask him more questions, and there was... I mean, they said a lot of stuff. They talked about, like, contrast and brightness of pictures, but as a juror, there was nothing you could get out of it. And remember, by this point, if there were any jurors on the jury, on the what's the term? Not on the bench, whatever. If there were any jurors who didn't totally have their mind made up going into this trial, who actually were, impartial to a certain extent and didn't really know much about the case, by this point, most of them are going to have their minds almost 100% made up. And this guy is not going to do anything to push anybody over the edge and say, you know what, no, I either think he's guilty or he's not guilty. It really would do nothing to change anybody's minds. And that's how they started the morning. So they go from that guy into Drew Hernandez, which those of you who watched a lot of the riots online and through Twitter last year probably know Drew Hernandez. He was one of the many people on the ground that night and who went around, the country to the different riots. There was Richie McGinnis, who already testified. There was Brandon Gutenschwager. I think I say his name, BG, on the scene. You had Drew Hernandez. Ford Fisher was there. Other people were there. And so they called Drew Hernandez to testify. And it gets kind of okay on direct. Comes across as, I think, a little overdoing it a little bit. With how much he, says the word rioter. But then when Binger starts cross-examining him, it just went completely over the top, and he completely blew it. He's the worst witness for Kyle that I have seen to date. And again, I only started watching when Bolch was testifying last Thursday, so I did not see the beginning of the trial. I missed Dominic Black and a couple other people, but from Bolch through to today, Drew Hernandez by far the worst witness for Kyle. And not because Drew said anything that was incriminating about Kyle. No, not at all. It's just that Drew was very clearly biased towards Kyle, and he didn't come across as well. So by Drew being associated with Kyle, it makes Kyle look bad. There was one moment that I found to be particularly egregious. And this exchange was not perfect for Binger either. I mean, Binger, did not do great cross-examining Drew Hernandez, but it's just Drew Hernandez was doing such a bad job that it kind of made up for what Binger was doing. So what stuck out to me the most was when Drew Hernandez was shown a clip that first of all, he was asked, hey, did you ever get Gage Grosskreutz on video? And he said, not to my knowledge. I would have to, look through all the footage that I took that night and try and find him. But I don't recall ever seeing him on any of my footage. And so, which is a fine answer. He says he doesn't know. He hasn't looked, it's been a year or whatever. And if he had seen him at the time, he wouldn't have known who Gage Grosskreutz was before he was shot. We all know who Gage is because he was shot. Nobody knew who he was before that. And so Binger pulls up a video that was taken by Drew Hernandez, and he says, hey, this is video that you filmed. You see that guy kneeling down here with a blue hat on? That's Gage Grosskreutz. And it's like, oh, okay, so you found footage that Drew Hernandez took of Gage Grosskreutz. And Binger just pointed out, hey, look, he's treating an injured person. And Hernandez comes, snaps back at him and he says, they were injured because they were rioting. It's like, keep your mouth shut, kid. You're not adding anything helpful to that. You're not improving. You just come across like a jerk. Every comment that came, he couldn't let anything go that Binger said. He had to try and spin it in a way to sound, negative for the rioters, which I understand not liking rioters. I don't like them either. But when you're in this kind of environment, when you're testifying in front of a court in a murder trial, you want to seem modest as a witness. Drew Hernandez had a lot to contribute when it came to, defending Kyle's conduct. But Drew's own personal comments just, made him look not credible. It made him look like a biased hack. And if he comes across as a hack, why would you trust his testimony about Kyle's conduct? Now, something interesting though was that, because like I said, Binger did screw up during this cross-examination. He wasn't doing a great job. I just thought Hernandez was doing a particularly poor job. Binger wanted to question Drew Hernandez, who I guess now works for Real America's Voice, which I only know as the website, or I don't know, maybe they're on some cable systems channel, let's call them that, network. Network's probably a fair name, which airs Steve Bannon's show, which I don't watch, but I know that I've seen clips of Steve Bannon's show, and it says Real America's Voice in the corner. So I can assume that Real America's Voice is something like an OAN or a Newsmax or something like that. somewhere you can go to hear, coverage of news and politics from a right-of-center perspective. And Binger wanted to question Hernandez about that. And the judge, I believe, was the one who objected or interjected. I don't recall if it was Richards. I doubt it was Richards, because Richards almost never objects. The judge has objected to Binger much more than Richards has. And the judge said, of what relevance is, the political bias of his employer? This isn't a political case, was basically what he said. This is a criminal trial. And Binger, seemed to be implying, well, yeah, this is a political case, which does not make Binger look good, especially in front of the jury. That he's concerned that, hey, this guy, his politics, or his employer's politics do not line up with the politics of this case. And so if Drew Hernandez came across as a pretty honest guy, who was testifying in good faith and just, testifying about what he saw without putting too absurd of a spin on what he saw, I think that moment would have carried more weight, because Binger would have looked like, hey, you're making this all about politics. But this guy did seem extremely biased, and I don't just mean biased in favor of Kyle. I mean like biased in favor of he had a narrative that he wanted to push, and that narrative was rioters were rioting, and that's what you need to focus on. And it just, to an absurd degree, kept inserting the word riot and rioter, which I understand, you're trying to get that word in the jury's head, but you were not doing it in a subtle way. You were doing it in a way that it's obvious to everyone. You're just trying to throw out the word riot. It's like, we get it after the first couple of times. You don't need to keep being that absurd and combative with Binger. Let Binger dig his own grave, which Binger tried to do, but Hernandez, gave him a hand up and helped him climb out of that hole. But after all that, it looks like we're going to be moving on to, I guess, the prosecution's rebuttal and then closing statements after that. So not much left of this trial. The judge wanted to finish everything up tomorrow on Friday, so that the jury could begin deliberating on Friday and Saturday and the weekend and all that. And both of the defense and the prosecution were in favor of pushing things off until Monday, and I guess give the jury the weekend off. So unfortunately, it seems like they're going to stall this out for a few more days. But I guess that'll give me some time over the weekend to talk about other stuff that I've missed this week, that isn't the Rittenhouse trial. Because I have to imagine that for at least a couple more days after the verdict comes out, the Rittenhouse trial is still going to be the top of the news, because there likely will be unrest if the mob does not get the verdict that they're looking for. So, with that said, I will see you folks back here tomorrow.